thanks for joining us on the Grad Ireland Live main stage here for our first session of the day, which is entitled What's Next? Deciding on your next move after graduation. Everyone can hear me okay? Sounds okay? Okay, all good. Listen, I'm delighted to have such a great panel with us on the stage today. So I'd like to welcome Angela Lambkin from QQI, Shauna Coyle from Kerry, sorry, not in the exact order, Elaine Daily from DCU beside Angela, sorry. Eímear from Conradh.
I'm Shauna.
Off the flyer here today, as you can see.
First time.
Let's try it from the other way, might be easier.
Start
Elaine,
over.
Eímear, Shauna and Angela.
Very good.
The way it was written down in front of me, I should have just read that. Okay, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. We'll have some time for questions at the end. And I suppose this session is, Grad Ireland Live, the reason we created this event was for people heading into, the final few months of college to have that conversation, which I know you're having, with yourself, with your friends, with your family, about what's next for you. And even if you know what's next, just to safeguard your thinking, to hear different opinions, to hear other people's stories, and hopefully that will help you make the right next step for yourself. So just to go through the panel, Elaine, if we could just maybe give us a brief background of your own career and how you ended up picking a career path that's right for you.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a long story, so I'll try and keep it short. So I work as a careers consultant in the career service in DCU. I suppose in terms of my educational background, I have a Bachelor of Social Science degree from UCC. I have a Master's in HR and from DIT, now TU Dublin, and I have a postgrad in career development and coaching studies. So I've worked in the not-for-profit sector, private sector in recruitment, and now public sector. But for the last 10 years, it's been primarily adult guidance, third level, and recruitment.
Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah, so I suppose I'm still in my grad era. I graduated last July and I started this job immediately after that. So my undergrad is in law and Irish, and then I did a master's in digital marketing. During my master's, I took a part-time voluntary position as the Irish officer of my student union, and that's really what led me into this job now. So I'm the third level coordinator for Conradh Na Gaeilge. So I'm traveling all over the country supporting Irish language societies, Irish language officers, trying to get Irish language events in places where neither of those are really in place. And then here I talk about careers. I do careers workshops with people to try and get them to consider the Irish language sector as an option for them after college. So I would suppose my only real job has been this in the last 9 months. So loving it, but don't really have much else to contribute other than that.
Thanks, Eímear.
So I wish I could say the same, that I only have 9 months of experience under my belt. I'll give you the short version of my journey. I studied an undergraduate degree in psychology, worked for a couple of years to get some experience and to save some cash in order to do a master's degree in occupational psychology or organizational psychology, if any of you know it. Good, it's kind of an up-and-coming field in the area of psychology. I then worked in academia for a few years in the UK, decided that wasn't for me. Worked for Rolls-Royce for a couple of years in a change management role. Then found my way into the consulting industry and spent 10 years there, much longer than I had intended to, because I discovered that I love variety, I love pace, I love change. Consulting is a great industry. If you're like me, you're quite energetic, I suppose. And then I left there post a few maternity leaves last year and have joined Kerry as our global early careers lead. So responsible for our graduate program and any interns and apprentices we take into the business around the world. So that's me.
Thanks, Shauna.
Well, I'm probably the elder lemon here. And actually my postgraduate, my undergraduate and postgraduate was also in psychology many years ago. And it was a very broad discipline at the time where you could go into many fields of work and organizational behavior, recruitment, etc. So I spent most of my career in education and specializing, I suppose, in qualifications, structures, systems, educational policy around recognition of qualifications, and at an international and European level. So I've worked for many years on European initiatives, and it's all about mobility of students, and I'm still there flying the flag and trying to help people like yourselves find your way to the next level or to the next stage in your careers. So information, that's what I'm about. And I think I have lots to offer.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Angela. So, Elaine, I'm sure there are people here with us today and who'll be watching this obviously online subsequently that may have question marks over what sector they want to work in, whether they want to do a postgrad, whether they want to change sector or area entirely by doing a conversion course. What are some of the questions that you might have had at this stage of your career? And what advice would you have for people who still have those questions on what they want to do next?
Yeah, I think it's really, I suppose we look at a few different things, and in my work with students, we'd kind of focus on different areas to help people figure out what they want to do like that, whether it be to, go working in a particular sector, pursue further study. I think it's really important to focus on your interests, look at what's important to you in terms of your career. We look at things like skills and strengths. Personality comes into it, so making sure, like if you're looking at going into a particular industry, a particular sector, or a particular type of work, that it's going to suit you in all of those things. And I think one of the key things that I say to people in terms of if you're considering further study is to think about why you're considering further study, like what you want it to give you, to make sure that you're going to pursue the best course for you to do and that you're being strategic in your decision making, I guess. Like that, I suppose, that you're looking at what you want to get out of it and that you're making sure that whatever course you decide on is the right course for you, because you don't want to take something on only to realise afterwards that there was maybe a different course that you should have done. In terms of sectors and industries and that, I would really say as well to do your research, and like that, then doing your research will kind of help you see if something is in line with your interests, if it's in line with what's important to you, and if it's going to kind of give you what you want to get out of your first job or your next step in your career. I suppose they'd be some of the main things.
Thanks very much. And you mentioned the word strategic there in terms of your thinking. Angela, just building on that, how important is it that if you're considering like a postgrad, for example, or even valuing your undergrad, just knowing where your qualification, what it entitles you to and what it empowers you to do, how important is that?
Well, I think most of you here will know that we have a national qualifications framework in Ireland, which is a set of 10 levels, which basically a qualification is referenced to. So if you're doing your bachelor's degree at the moment, you're going to achieve a level 8 on the NFQ. And that's, you might say, the starting point for many of you now. So you're basically going to be looking probably at a postgrad at level 9, or there are other types of programs coming along that I thought I'd mention called micro-credentials as well, which is very much around professional development, that you may have your bachelor's, some of you may have the master's or a postgraduate diploma, and then you take on some kind of a micro-credential training program, which again, the most important thing I would say to you is whatever program you take on is to check the credentials of that program, to make sure it's quality assured, to make sure it's recognized in the qualifications framework, and basically that what you're spending your money on is well spent. So it's referenced and recognized in Ireland, but also internationally as well. So that'll be another point that we can pick up on maybe in a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some information here at the end we can hand out on QQI, the various levels. Shauna, just to return to if people are considering, or if they're looking for a graduate program or a graduate job that's right for them, might be considering a few different areas. What, as someone who works within that stage of recruitment, what makes a candidate, stand out, and how can you tell if someone is really pursuing a sector that they have the passion for rather than something that they feel they might be able to do?
Yeah, I've maybe a bit of a controversial opinion here because
okay.
I am agnostic of. I say to people, don't get hung up on your current qualification, what you're studying. Don't get hung up on sectors. Focus on what you enjoy and what you're best at, and all of those transferable skills. We use that word. I know it's become maybe a bit of a go-to phrase, but really what we're looking for at Kerry are people who are good problem solvers, who are really curious, who have good cultural awareness, who have good self-awareness, who are good critical thinkers. And honestly, if you have those foundations, you will excel in any of our graduate programs, and we can move you between those programs. I have several graduates in my 2021 and 2022 intakes who are currently deep in the business, who are now looking to switch. So I have a guy at the moment who started on our supply chain graduate program. He's now saying, I want to get into HR. Great, let's do that. I have somebody who's in technical who wants to come into our research and development team. In these early years post-graduation, feel free to explore. Don't limit yourself too much. You have the gift of time on your side. It's okay to try things and not like them and then find your way. There's always back doors into things. I'm never black and white about people.
Thanks very much, Shauna. I think that it's such great advice that for students, and I suppose for employers as well, it's so important that they have someone that can not only do the job, but that they want to work with. So, the whole part of becoming part of a team, someone that, your colleagues can rely upon, and that's going to serve you well in any sector. And Eímear, as a recent graduate, what was some of your questions that you asked yourself before you took the job at Conradh Na Gaeilge, or were there other sectors you were considering, and what were some of your major kind of issues, I suppose, that you dealt with before you accepted the role?
So first of all, my undergraduate was in law and Irish, and then I moved to digital marketing. So I asked myself a lot of questions before I did that. That's quite a big change. I realised law wasn't for me after just getting experience with it, so that helps a lot with a lot of my friends. They've realised that after experience, they're like, actually, I don't like an office environment. I don't like filing paperwork, or I don't like XYZ. Sometimes they need to be more physical and things like that. Before I took the job at Conradh Na Gaeilge, I had a lot of questions because obviously my qualification was in digital marketing, but thankfully I didn't limit myself because the things I was doing in my part-time that I, really was invested in was the things that I loved doing. And as it happens, within the job that I'm in, because it's youth work, there's a lot of social media outreach, there's a lot of newsletters, there's a lot of the digital marketing thing that you can draw in. So a lot of the questions I had at the beginning have obviously been answered for me now, so I've been here there 9-10 months, but I wouldn't worry about, I really want to use my degree, because a lot of the time you can just kind of shoehorn it into a lot of jobs. Like if you have a degree in business, you can just fit that into finding the right target market for this Irish society I'm trying to start up and things like that. So yeah, that would be it, I think.
Thanks very much, Eímear. And I know, Elaine, this is the start of a particularly busy time, I know, for career services. A lot of people becoming in career services that may have not been there before. They may have not worked on the CV yet. They may not have, as we've just discussing here, decided what area they want to work in, or what postgrad they want to pursue, or what they want to do next. They want to take a gap year, they want to travel. How can they do that and, showcase that in their CV? So what are some of the main queries you would be getting around this time of year in terms of the most common concerns for students and soon-to-be graduates?
It varies, because like that we work with like that final year students, penultimate year students, graduates up to 2 years out. So the queries can really vary, but we'd say with final years it could be applying for further study around this time, but then oftentimes maybe people in courses see other people in their degree applying for courses, a master's or whatever it might be, and they're kind of like, actually, I need to start figuring things out. And so it can really be kind of career guidance like that, actually figuring out what you can do with your degree, what options are open to you. But I always say to people, and it kind of feeds into what you were saying there, don't worry so much about what you can do with your degree. Focus on what you want to do and look at how you can use your degree to get you there. That's the most important thing, because you're absolutely not limited. As you've said, you're not limited by your degree. So really kind of focus on what your interests are, what you want to do. But really we deal with everything like that. I have a lot of people at the moment looking at working or studying abroad, maybe taking a year out. So it's kind of anything career or further study related that I would work with people on.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm stating the obvious. It is obviously such a personal, journey for each person. So obviously all careers are different. But thanks for addressing that. And Angela, for those who are considering postgrad or perhaps going into a job, I was talking in a postgraduate panel last night, and people were saying, would I be better off just taking this job rather than pursuing the postgrad, and might just end up at the same position in a year's time. And I know, as we always would say, there's a lot of reasons to pursue postgraduate study, but the one reason you should never pursue it is to try and figure out what to do next. because it's too much of a significant investment in time and money and everything else. So what advice would you have for someone who is considering entering the graduate market or
I
pursuing
suppose
postgrad?
all learning is good. You know, everything that you learn, whether it's in the workplace or in an education setting, is going to be of benefit to you. So there's no question about that. But again, it's trying to find something that maybe complements what you already have, and you know, doing your research beforehand. Find something that complements, I suppose, the learning that you have achieved in your undergraduate program, and you know, your pathway may not be straight at this particular point in time, but it will take time, and you may find, you know, as I say from my colleagues here, lots of opportunities will be there. You know, again, what I would be saying to you is to do your research and check out all of the relevant information sources about what programs are available, the grad programs that are available, and try to find one that suits you, that you feel that is the right fit. And there are many information resources here today, obviously all the grad programs and the employers that are here today, and all the institutions who are offering their grad programs. So go and talk to all of these people, find out what they offer, and find out if that's what you're thinking of, and if that might be a fit for you.
Thanks very much, Angela. And Shauna, if you were to go back and talk to yourself in the final year of college, or when you were starting your career, dealing with a setback, dealing with that first setback, you know, not getting that job that you thought would be right for you, or not getting on that course that you thought was the right next step for you, what are a few tools you would kind of draw upon in terms of dealing with a setback at an early stage in your career or in your career decision-making process?
Yeah, I think these setbacks are really character building, actually, and that's another quality that we look for in our graduates is resilience. Have you had setbacks, and how have you dealt with those? I think that's, so don't take to the bed for a month feeling sorry for yourself. Pick yourself up and go again. But, sorry.
Sorry about that.
No problem. In terms of advice, there's always back doors as well. If one door closes, look for another door in. My biggest tip, though, of all is talk. You've just touched on it, Angela. Talk to everybody who will listen. Talk to all your friends, your family, your extended network, anybody you meet on the street. Ask people, what do you do and how did you get there? Honestly, the world of work is so squiggly nowadays, and there are so many careers that you might not even think exist. Only by talking to people do you find that out. I'm a great advocate for, I'm forever asking people, what do you do? What do you do? That curiosity, I think I have it, and that's something we look for in our grads.
Yeah, and on that, if you don't mind, like for in the Irish language sector, a lot of those jobs didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. Like my job only existed 2017, I think. Like only the year I started college did it even exist at all. So like just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean that you can't create that space for yourself and go look for how you're going to make that work for you. So it's just another option for people.
Yeah, and I mean, there are people starting studying now that will be doing jobs that we don't yet know, that don't even exist yet. So it's, it's such a interesting time in that space. Do we have any questions on the floor? Anyone have any questions for the panel? No. Okay. Sorry. Thank you very much. Hang on. I'll come down to you with the mic if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi.
So I don't have a lot of experience. Actually, I have zero experience. I directly came from my undergraduate, from my postgraduate here. So how can I compensate for that lack of experience in an industry that just even for a graduate program, you need to have 1 to 2 years of experience in some companies?
Will I jump in there? We do not look for experience. As I've alluded to already, what we're really looking for is your character, your personality. Do we think you'll be the right fit with our organisation? And do we think you have the right skills to succeed and really accelerate in our organisation? So all of those things I've mentioned. Are you curious? Are you resilient? Are you a problem solver? Do you have that kind of grit and determination? We look for that through our assessment process. And if you get to our assessment centre stage, you have it. Right? It is a competitive process, no doubt, but most people don't have experience. Most of our graduates coming onto our graduate program have zero experience. They might have part-time jobs and things like that. Does it stand to them? Not necessarily. So please do not beat yourself up.
Thanks very much. And Elaine, if you could just... Another question.
Just want to continue the previous question. So you mentioned the character, right? So I want to ask, how do you see, like, recognize this kind of thing you call character in the first stages of recruitment, when you only see like CV and cover letter, or it comes later?
I didn't fully hear that question.
Is
I'm
it
sorry.
how
do you see the
How do you
character, I
indicate the character?
Oh,
and
sorry. How do we determine?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what stage? You
Yeah.
indicated at the first stage when you see the CV and cover letter. That
Yeah.
kind of.
So
Well, I don't know if I'll come in, you might have something to add as well. Like, I think focusing on the application is really important. And like that, even as a graduate, if you don't have a lot of experience, it's like you have so much to offer as a graduate. So don't worry about compensating for what you feel you don't have or feeling like you even need to acknowledge it. Because if you're applying for a graduate role, they won't expect you to have that. But just kind of going to your question, it's really important to kind of, I suppose we really focus on tailoring and focusing your applications and getting in as much of the skill set and strengths that you have to offer in line with what you're applying for, because the CV or the application is what's going to get you in the door to an interview. And then the interview, if you do your interview prep, you'll be able to, I suppose, let your personality come through a little bit more and show an organisation that you'll be a good fit, maybe how you'll fit into a team, and you'll be able to get across those personal characteristics and kind of emphasise those traits as well. But like that, if you look at a job description, the clues are in the job description for what employers are looking for. So really try to align your application to that. And then it's a lot easier when you're in person to actually, let your personality come through and kind of highlight how you'd be suitable for the role.
if I could just jump in there though for a second to build on that. So even in those early stages, when you're thinking about your CV, like I can't tell you how many CVs we see coming through the door, and most of them look the same. Try and inject a bit of personality into your CV if you can. That might be just referencing a story, or I don't know, say you... So I had someone approach the stand there a little while ago actually, and I had a look at his CV, and I said, tell me, from all this experience and all these things you've studied, what you enjoyed the most. Or tell me, I don't know, if you worked in a dog shelter and you have a dog at home, tell me something that just kind of captures my interest about the person beyond the CV. So try and inject a bit of personality. And to answer your question, we then have a personality questionnaire built into our process as well. And then we have a video interview before you would ever get to meet us in person. So we have a lot of ways to look into your kind of character and personality.
Thanks very much, Shauna. We have another question here.
Hiya. Just to ask, I come from quite a broad undergrad. I come from journalism, and during my degree they kind of told us there's a lot of different sectors you could go into, as you're discussing all the different sectors you can have a little look at.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. Sorry, I'm so scared to put too close and like burn your ears. I come from quite a broad undergrad, and I have interests in so many sectors, but I tend to get quite frustrated because I want to narrow it down. Like I have an interest in teaching, but I also have an interest in marketing. I also have an interest in journalism, and it's hard to make that kind of decision. Even my parents are like, do you have a narrowed down idea of what you want to do? But I still don't. Do you have any advice on narrowing down the different sectors and seeing where you belong?
I have, but I don't want to.
Maybe Angela, would you have any advice on that front?
It's sometimes it's a matter of luck, that times something will fall into place for you. That's what I would say to my own children, is that something will click and something will fall into place that will be the right thing for you. So there is sometimes that element to it, but I do believe you need to keep your options open as much as you can, and develop your skills in some areas where you may have strengths, and that bit of extra area that you're keen on. And obviously your journalistic skills, your communication skills should be really strong. So, I think you'll get there.
If I could just add in, sorry, I don't mean to take over, just on that, if you're in college currently or if you're a recent graduate, you might still be able to access your university careers service, so don't be afraid to reach out to them to see if you can book in for a one-to-one with the careers consultant, because that could be really useful. Usually people get stuck for a few reasons, and it could be a lack of information about themselves, so increasing your self-awareness could help narrow things down, or it could be a lack of information about the options that you're considering. So that would just be my quick tip.
Sorry, we all want to come in.
Yeah, just also I think the developing your graduate profile using platforms such as LinkedIn. There's one called Europass for European portfolio development. So develop your portfolios. And sometimes what you realize when you develop these portfolios, that you realize, well, actually, I have an awful lot of skills. I have an awful lot of interests. I have an awful lot of, say, volunteering work that I've done. And to get that down on paper or in an electronic format can be very useful for you, because again, you can share that when you need to then with employers. But sometimes it's just to self-evaluate and to map out your own skill set so that you can talk about it then when you get an opportunity at an interview.
Thanks very much, Angela. One more question here.
Hi, I have just a question. If you post any job regarding the entry level or graduate programs, if you choose the experienced guy or graduate guy, that's the only one I have question.
Say that again.
Say that again. Experience or?
If you post a job, any graduate or entry level.
Entry level or graduate, is it?
Yeah. You choose entry level, like a no experienced guy or experienced guys.
For entry level.
Well, I suppose, yeah, I mean...
I'm ambivalent, personally. I don't
right
want
person.
again, it's back to your person. It's back to finding the right person, the right fit for us, regardless of your experience.
And I suppose as well, like, we've been through such an interesting few years, that's one way of putting it, and a lot of people didn't have the traditional internships that they would have normally had, or they may have had graduate roles fell through, and so they may be coming out of university without that experience. So how just to finish up, what would be some of the ways you can highlight even college work you've done, voluntary work you've done, and how valuable is that to your CV, Elaine?
Well, I think employers obviously know what has gone on over the last few years. They have been the ones that have had to, pull their internships or shorten them or whatever it is. So they're completely understanding of the difficulties people had, or like that even your part-time job might have, been put on pause for a while. I think again it comes back to the CV or the applications that you're making. Like that, make sure that you're putting in enough information. Like if it's your degree, make sure you're including relevant modules that you've studied. If you have a final year project or a thesis, include information on that. We've kind of touched on it already, but don't leave anything out, like hobbies, interests, achievements. It's all relevant because employers will look at things holistically. They will look at everything you've done. So it's not just about your degree. It's not just about a relevant internship. It can be about the part-time job, the voluntary work that you've done. So just don't kind of assume that these things aren't relevant, because they can be very transferable.
Yeah, and on that, if any of you are involved in any societies or if you have any voluntary positions, they're hugely important. Because you might think, like it's only dance society, but you've organised events, you've been in charge of money, you've sent out emails. Like these are all transferable skills, as we were saying.
Absolutely.
Within the Irish sector particularly, they're really looking for that. Like that's the only experience I had when I applied. I had no paid experience. I just had like a thing that I put my hand up for and decided I wanted to run a few events during the year. And it makes such a difference to see kind of the interest that you have outside of college as well.
Thanks very much. Shauna, if you just want any tips?
Sorry, say that again.
Just any tips you might have for
add,
someone to
and
showcase
to
their
add to
experience?
that. I sound like a stuck record there. For me, as the guys have said, include all of that, but what that tells me is what you're passionate about. That's what I'm interested in. So if you're passionate about dance society, brilliant. What was it about dance that really interested you? If you did a volunteership in whatever it may be, a sustainability type of organisation or whatever, again, that tells me about you, and that's what I'm interested in.
There's another question down there.
We have time for one more question, just about. Yep. Thanks, Angela.
How's it going? So essentially, I was just wondering if you were to take a career break after you finish your college degree. So a lot of people, they spend their time, finishing their degree and they just want a break. They want to go traveling. They want to see the world. But I've noticed with some people that I've met on my travels, they actually did take their career break, and then companies are a lot less likely to hire them. Whether they think that they're unreliable and they might not stay in the company for a long time, or whether they think that they aren't qualified after taking such time away. I'm just wondering, how would you avoid coming into that situation if you did want to take some time away from, your career just for a short period of time?
Do you want to say?
Thanks.
Happy,
very much.
happy to answer. I think those companies are very short-sighted,
Absolutely,
honestly. I think traveling will seriously add to your worldliness, your cultural awareness, all of that sort of thing. So to me, it would be a huge benefit. Now, if you'd been traveling for 5 years, I might be like, that's quite an extended period. And we do actually on the Kerry grad program have a stipulation that you must be within 2 years of graduating. So a year away from the workplace, absolutely great, an advantage, I would say.
Yeah, and many students, many of you here may have participated in Erasmus programs already where you've gone abroad for a period, and I think you'll all appreciate that that has been a fantastic experience for you. So, you know, employers like that. They like to see that someone has gone abroad and had that bit of experience, which does, you know, change some people's lives forever.
Great, thanks so much. Listen, we are out of time. The next session starting in a few minutes. So, listen, thanks so much for joining us here today. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for listening. And I'd like to thank Angela and thank Shauna and Eímear and Elaine in the right order this time for their insights and for their expertise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emil.